Most Canadians think that RRSPs is the smartest way to retire in Canada. But I have to be blunt. The way banks sell RRSPs is no less than a scam. Not because RRSPs are bad, but because they count on you not understanding the fine print. And if you don't know how RRSPs work, you're signing up for decades of high taxes, higher fees, and a lifetime relationship with your bank that benefits them more than it benefits you. Let me show you exactly how this game is played, so let's get started. In today's video, we are going to talk about four things. The first one is how RRSPs actually work. The second one is I'll talk about RRSPs versus non-registered accounts. I'll also talk about TFSA a little bit and the tax implications of all of these accounts. I'll give you real numbers here. I'll then talk about why it feels like a scam, and then we'll talk about who RRSPs are actually for, because I do believe in the product. It's just for the right people, and we'll talk about who those right people are. My mission is simple. I want to retire 1 million immigrants with $5 million. Whether it's investing, real estate, tax strategies, or in general making smart money move, every video I make on this channel will help you build wealth step by step. If you want to be part of that 1 million, just hit the subscribe button and let's grow together. So first, let's talk about how RRSPs actually work. RRSP stands for Registered Retirement Savings Plan. I don't know why they call, I keep saying that in all my TFSA, the registered plan video. I don't know why they call it a savings plan. It's basically a retirement plan where you invest money. But let me give you two scenarios here. The first scenario is that your gross income, let's say, is $100,000. This is the money which is before tax that's coming from your employer, $100,000 a year. After tax income, if you don't contribute to anywhere, no RRSPs, nothing, will be $73,864. It's very simple. You can run any calculator and know that this is after CPP, EI, all the deductions, but you have not contributed to RRSPs here. Scenario number two is that your gross income is the same, $100,000. Your RRSP contribution, let's say, is $10,000. So you invested $10,000 towards your RRSP, and now your taxable income is not $100,000, which it was in scenario one. Now your taxable income becomes $100,000 minus $10,000, which is $90,000, and therefore your after-tax income, because now you are being taxed on a much lower, income, or $10,000 lower, your after-tax income will be $76,943. That basically means that you'll get a tax refund of $3,079. Now that's how RRSPs work, and that's how everyone sells it, because you're getting a tax refund, you are happy with that tax return, and a lot of people actually squander that tax refund on vacations, on stuff, and we'll talk about, why that's wrong. However, a lot of people don't realize about RRSP. These refunds are amazing, right? But they don't realize about RRSPs is that, first of all, the money is locked away until retirement, so you cannot withdraw this money in the same tax efficient way that you can after 60 years old or 59.5 years old. When you pull it out, it's taxed as regular income and not capital gains. I'll talk about that with an example, but you are pulling it as it will be taxed at income tax level. If you understand the tax code, if you invest in non-registered accounts, if you're selling stocks from there, or if you sell real estate, that income is not taxed at overall salary tax level. That income is taxed at capital gain exemption, and you're only taxed at 50% of your capital gains. But that's not the case in RRSPs. Because you got a tax advantage in the beginning, which is a tax refund that you got, you are taxed at the entire amount that you take out from your RRSP, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. I'll actually give you real numbers in the next slide. And if you withdraw early, let's say you want to leave Canada in 10 years, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, you will incur a big tax bill. So you'll have to repay all the refunds and everything that you took advantage of. Plus, you'll lose contribution room forever. Which is something, again, that a lot of people don't know. Now let's talk about the second one, where RRSPs. I'll just compare RRSPs and non-registered accounts, and I'll also throw in TFSA here, which is tax-free savings account, and I'll compare the tax implications on that. So let's assume the same scenario, where scenario one, the gross income is $100,000, $73,800. So you got a tax refund. It's the same thing. Let's assume that you put the $10,000 into RRSP, and that you just keep it. Invest that money, you invest it for 30 years into, let's say, an S&P 500 index like a VFV, and it grows at 8% year on year. That $10,000 will 10x to $100,000, round about that, in 30 years. And after tax income, so you'll be taxed at the entire capital gain, which is 100,000 minus 10,000, so $90,000. You'll be taxed 30% on this entire one. I'm just assuming a tax rate here. Let's say on retirement you have a tax rate of 30%. You'll be taxed, 30% on the $90,000 of capital gains, and your after-tax income from taking out the $100,000 will be $73,000. Now, I know that you might be thinking that you'll not be taking out the money altogether, but it doesn't matter, right? Even if you stagger the money, the comparisons will be equal. I'm just keeping it simple for this calculation, just so you understand the concept of it. So after tax income will be $73,438. However, you also got a tax refund of $3,079 when you invested those $10,000 in the year that you invested those $10,000 in your RRSP. So if you add that, it becomes $76,517. Simple math, and yeah, that's the money that you keep. Let's say you invest that same $10,000, instead of doing it in RRSP, and you do not get the $3,000 of tax refund there, you invest that into a TFSA, which is a tax-free savings account. Now, obviously, you don't have the room of $10,000 per year. There's a contribution room. I made an entire video on TFSA. I'll link that in the description. If you've not seen that video, I'll encourage you to watch that video after this. But tax-free savings account is essentially that you are putting after-tax income into this account. You are investing that for 30 years. And when you take that money out, you do not pay any taxes, any capital gain, anything on it. So TFSA $10,000, invest for 30 years at 8% year-on-year return. In 30 years, it will be $100,000, again, the same amount that you have in RRSP. However, the after-tax income will be the same because you do not pay any taxes when you put the money into TFSA. So clearly, if you are prioritizing RRSPs over TFSAs, you are losing out on money. But there are some exceptions I'll talk about in the end. What are the exceptions where you should, use RRSPs? I'm not against RRSPs. It's just, I don't like the way it's being sold, and people just invest that blindly, following other people's advice, but the numbers actually speak differently. Now let's assume that you have maxed out your TFSAs and you're still investing in RRSPs. However, let's look at an alternate where you invest into a non-registered account, like a normal account, like not TFSA, not RRSP, it's a normal investing account that you invest in, and you invest for 30 years. Again, the $10,000, you do not get the tax refund because you did not invest in RRSP. You instead chose to invest in a non-registered account. You invest that for 30 years at 8% year-on-year return. In 30 years, it will be the same $100,626 because that's how compounding works. On the first 45,313, how did I get this number? So your capital gains on the $100,000 when you take it out will be $100,000 minus $10,000, so $90,000 and change. Half of that, you're actually not taxed at all. That's how capital gain exemption works. On half of the capital gains, you're not taxed, so you get to keep the 45,313 tax-free. On the other half, that's the other capital gain, you are taxed, let's say 30%. Now, it will not be 30% because your tax slab has changed now, but for simplicity, again, I'm keeping the tax slab at 30%. You're taxed 30% and you're left with $31,719, plus you have the initial $10,000 that you deposited. And if you add this all up, it will be $87,032. So if you look at this, even this number is higher than the $76,517 that you get, including the tax refund that you get in RRSP. So clearly, RRSP is the least favorable account when it comes to taxation. Now, the only way RRSPs would make sense, just mathematically speaking, is that if you invested this $3,000 of tax refund into your TFSA account, it grew to $30,000 in 30 years because that's how compounding works. And then your $30,000 you withdraw tax-free, plus you withdraw $76,517 after taxes, and then you land over $100,000. And that's the only way you are able to beat every other account if you are able to invest this money. But most people don't do that. That's the real math that nobody shows you. Now let's talk about why banks love pushing RRSPs on you and why it feels like a scam. First one is employee targets and commissions. Bank staff get bonuses to open more RRSPs. They don't care if it's good for you or not. All they care about is their quotas. And if they meet their quotas, they make a higher income, they make that promotion, and they get paid a higher bonus. It's as simple as that. The second reason why it feels like a scam is that they put you into high fee funds. Once the bank employee convinces you to open the RRSP because you'll get a tax refund, it makes sense, right? Because you do not have the knowledge of how to invest, they'll sell you something called as a balanced growth fund. And it'll have a fine print which says that there's a 1 to 2% management fees that they'll charge for it. If you open your own RRSP in a wealthsimple account, you can easily buy VFV, which is a S&P 500 index, inside of that RRSP account for a management fee of less than 0.1%. So a lot of these times the banks are charging you 10 to 20 times higher than what you should be paying. And there have been many studies that have shown that 95% of these growth funds do not beat the S&P 500. That fee gap alone is costing you hundreds and thousands of dollars. And all they are doing is feeding on your lack of knowledge. I use wealthsimple to invest into my RRSPs and have total control over my investments and paying a fraction of the fees. And if you want to do the same, you can use my code in the description and get a $25 signing bonus. And when you do that, I'll also get $25 as a referral. Just wanted to put it upfront and not wanting to put it in the fine print like your bank does. The third reason why it feels like a scam is it's a lifetime customer trap. For example, now you're buying a home and you want to withdraw your RRSP as part of the home buyer's plan. In most cases, you'll not be able to do that online. You'll have to go to a branch, sit down, and suddenly you are being pitched a mortgage. And obviously, they'll never say, you know what, Scotia's product is better. They'll obviously want to sell you their product. They already have a lock on your RRSP and now they want to lock you up in a mortgage. Collect interest, collect prepayment penalties, and laugh all the way while you pay the price. They will then charge you a hefty prepayment penalty on your mortgage. And not just that, let's say you watch this video and you have an RRSP account in a bank. If you want to transfer that RRSP account into a wealthsimple account because now you've realized that you have been paying too many fees, they'll then charge you a discharge fee or a transfer fee to make that transfer. And then the biggest scam of all is RRSP loans and line of credits. They'll give you a special low interest loan to put that money into your RRSP and get the refund. But the 2, 3, 4% teaser rate is just that. It goes away in a year. Now you're stuck paying a higher interest on borrowed money for your retirement. And then to make things worse, they'll offer you a line of credit against your RRSP. That's literally taking a loan on your retirement. Beyond stupid. And this is all dressed up in a polished language. But if you break it all down, it's nothing more than banks charging you more fees, more interest, and penalties for life. But let's be fair, RRSPs aren't useless. They make sense for the right people, which brings me to the final topic of this video, who RRSPs are actually for. The first people it makes sense is if your employer is matching in your RRSP. So if they are matching up to, sometimes they match up to 6%. So if they are matching up to 6% of your contribution, make that contribution because this is 100% free money. You're actually doubling your money on day one because whatever you're contributing, the employer contributes that. That's 100% return on the money on day one. And then it compounds. And then of course you pay more tax, like I showed in the calculation, but that's on double the money. You did not, make 2 times the contribution. You only made your half and the other half is all gravy. The second kind of people who it will make sense for is you are in a very high tax bracket and expect to be in a much lower tax bracket at retirement, which honestly is not always true because a lot of people that I work with, when we do their mortgage, we do a retirement planning call with them, and sometimes, we involve the CFP as well, the Certified Financial Planner, because within Grow Nation, you're getting the tools to invest the right way. You are almost all the time be better off at retirement. You'll not be making significantly lower than what you're making right now. You'll not be living only off social security because that's not how we should be planning our retirement. And that's why your tax bracket will actually not be significantly lower than where you are right now, unless you're making $150,000, $200,000 plus. I'm not talking about those people. Then you might consider wanting to invest into RRSPs right now. But I'll still max out my TFSAs first and then invest into RRSPs. And whatever I get outside of, as a tax refund, I'll still reinvest into the stock market. The third reason why you would consider investing in RRSPs is that you are buying your first home soon and contributing to RRSPs gets you a refund that you can then use towards down payment. The $3,000 that we showed in my first example, that $3,000 is more than what you would pay to a lawyer. So that actually contributes towards your closing cost, and that would make sense. At the risk of repeating myself, if you are investing in RRSPs, make sure that the refunds that you're getting, you are reinvesting that into maxing out your TFSAs or reinvesting that into the stock market and not squander that money on vacations and expenses. Because like I showed in my first example, you are actually borrowing this refund from your future retired you. RRSPs can be a really useful tool, but if you are blindly trusting your bank teller who honestly is making the same mistake with his wealth, you will pay a price. If you are looking to buy your first home in the coming months or years, the smartest move is learning how to combine your RRSPs and FHSA to accelerate your down payment. Click right here to watch my next video where I break it all down step by step. That's all I have for today. मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए bye bye.